Hello, everyone, and welcome to M&P's 5th BC Processor Panel. Although today's a little bit different because we do have a processor from Saskatchewan joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize that I'm coming to you today from the unceded territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people. And here's who I am. My name is Luke Biles. I'm a CPA CA from Newfoundland, now based in Victoria, as a partner and business advisor here with M&P. I work with a wide variety of private enterprise clients and lead our cannabis services niche here on Vancouver Island, mostly because in a former life, I was employee number 4 as financial controller at Rubicon Organics, which is the LP responsible for brands like Simply Bare, Homestead, and 1964. In my spare time, I'm also a volunteer board member of the Greater Victoria Housing Society. Let's get to some housekeeping real quick. This presentation is being recorded, and we will send out a link to the archived video in a few days. There will be a Q&A period at the end of the webinar, so that's when you can expect for us to get to all your questions. You can submit questions throughout the presentation by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll try and get to as many of them as we can during the Q&A period. And if it doesn't get answered, if your specific question doesn't get answered, everybody's contact info is going to be shown during and after the presentation, so you can just directly follow up with them. Now let's get on to the main event here. Joining us today, we've got Jim Southam from Weed Pool Processing Cooperative, Mike Forbes and Jason Scott from Sitka WeedWorks, and M&P's own Jory Subaran, a management consultant based out of our Calgary office, providing services to cannabis and other entities across Western Canada. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to join us here today. First up, we've got Michael and Jason from Sitka WeedWorks. Sitka is doing cannabis their own way with a little help from their friends. Not only is the BCLP producing remarkable cannabis products, but Sitka's experienced growers are partnering with skillful and cannabis-obsessed micro growers to cultivate top-shelf small batch cannabis. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hi, thank you very much, Luke. Michael Forbes here. I'm really excited to be here and introduce our company, Sitka WeedWorks. We're located in Souk, and we are a compilation of 53 plus micro growers. They are legacy growers from the legacy market. We've interviewed over 400 growers and picked the best of the best. And we are first and foremost landlords that work in tandem with our micro growers. So it's all boats rising. We help them get through the licensing, build out their facility, and start growing great craft weed. And then we process and package through our facility. We are currently building out our 3rd phase, and I'd like to share a link with you. I think Luke can help with that, and it'll walk you through the 3rd phase, which is 25 micro units under construction now. Before I get further into the numbers and everything, I'd like to introduce Jason Scott. He is a legacy market spirit animal. He has tremendous experience working with growers, bridging gaps between pricing and helping all of our growers succeed in this market. So take it away, Jason.
Hey, great. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it. So before we get started, I'll give you guys a brief history about Sitka. So we got licensed 4 years ago. And when we got licensed, we got approved by our local government for 700,000 square feet of cannabis. We decided we weren't interested in getting involved with the race to the bottom for flower and grow average Budweiser, basically. So we decided to take our land, go back to the government, and we got, which was already pre-zoned for cannabis, and we were approved to build 53 micro grows. So they're basically 53 5,000 square foot shops. The critical thing to that is, at the time, there was no land to be done, or there was no land basically around for micros to grow. So we decided to be there to support them, be their big brother. So fast forward, basically 3 years later, we finished phase 1. They're up and growing. Phase 2 is being built, and phase 3 is in the works as well. So at Sitka, right now. We grow our own cannabis. We're about the size, we grow about 120 lights. We produce 600 to 700 kilos a year just at Sitka. We're big believers in just supporting legacy growers. Our master grower is a legacy guy. We have a saying that we only hire growers that have fed their family on flower in the past. We're also a processor. So we process for our micros, and then we also process for smaller outside LPs that need help. We pouch, we do pre-rolls, and we're about to get into extraction. We also have our own nursery. So part of supporting our micro partners is that we provide them with mature plants so that they can flower the entire 2,150 square feet of canopy that they're allowed. So moving forward, basically, each micro that so being a landlord, we provide each micro with about 4,500 to 6,000 square feet of a shell. We then, the lease rate is standard. They then build out the shop themselves. We don't tell them how to grow, and we also don't tell them how to build out their shop because, of course, we don't want to be responsible for that in case they grow poorly. As Mike mentioned, we've vetted over 400 different growers for this. We've chosen 45, and then we still have several shops that we have applications on, but we're just seeing with the gray market getting a little bit worse, we're finding more and more great growers coming out. So we've just kind of reserved those for them. A ballpark, these guys are building out their shops in 2 to 3 months. And in the Canna Park, it's not a matter of if you get licensed, it's when. We're already pre-zoned. We've built many of these shops already. We know the numbers, and ballpark, once you put in your application, you're getting your license in about 8 weeks. I think it's important to know each micro is individually licensed by its own, by itself. So it's their asset that they can sell at any time. Each micro is producing between 50 to 70 kgs per month. 100% of that product comes to Sitka. So what Sitka does is we do 3.5 gram pouches with the mediums and bigs, and all the smalls we do is pre-rolls. If you're inside the park, we do a JV revenue share with them. And then for the pre-rolls of smalls or call it unpouchables, we do a flat rate on it. And then of course, all the trim we'll purchase, and we're just about to get our extraction license. And so we'll be doing craft cannabis shatter. Now, again, if currently our phase 1 is complete, we're up and running, we're harvesting. Phase 2 is just being built. The new growers are expected to be in there within the month and building out. Phase 3 should be complete, which is 25 units by the spring. And phase 4 will be completed by about 2023. So we're super excited. So as you noticed on the very first, once we're all up and running, we should be producing about 40,000 kg per year of premium high-end cannabis. As I mentioned, this is all small batch, 50 kilo lots. We do strain management with them so they understand what strains to grow, how often. We are able to, our pre-roll manufacturing, we are able to do about 20,000 handmade pre-rolls per day. And then with our nursery that we're just about to build, we're building a 22,000 square foot facility with 21,000 square feet of nursery cannabis, nursery canopy. We're able to grow about 70,000 teen plants per month. And then with all the trim and such, we're able to produce about 125,000 grams of extract per month as well. So what we try to do is Sitka acts more like a big brother, acts like a helper, because the way that we formed our joint venture with the micros, and because they do sell through us and 100% of the product comes to us, it basically all boats rising. So we provide them with plants so that they can crop out more, so that they can produce more high-end flower, so that we can package more. So really, it's critical to Sitka that the growers are successful. If they're not successful, we don't make any money. I mean, so we're transparent with what we sell the product for and what their cut is. And it's basically been working out excellent. We made this plan nearly 4 years ago, and it's come to fruition. And knock on wood, everything's been working out extremely well, and the growers are very happy. So Thank you very much for your time. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know at the end.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jay and Michael. Yeah, you guys have been at this for trying to get this up and running, and obviously doing it successfully. So for a few years now, I've always heard talk of the micro park going in Souk, and I was really excited for it. So it's excellent to see that you guys actually have a lot of products in the marketplace right now, being sold in retailers. Which provinces are you guys licensed to sell to again?
Yeah, so currently we're selling in BC, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Northwest Territories.
Excellent. So a nice wide reach there, and the ability to, if BC doesn't want it, the other provinces might, right?
Yeah, well, we've been very lucky. I mean, it's more like how much do you give to each province? We sell out very quickly in each province. Our throughput's amazing. And that's mainly due to great strain management and unbelievable growers.
Yeah. I think I know why you sell out so quickly. I've seen some pretty insane THC percentages, and right now that's what's driving the market. Do you want to let us know what strain that is and what numbers it ended up?
Yeah, well, so far we hit north of 34% on one strain, which was amazing for our mango meringue pre-rolls. Insane. We've hit north of 30 several times on Bruce Banner, and even our micros are up there between 25 to 30%. I mean, so it's been amazing. We've been very lucky. I mean, it's what you get for when you come through and you handpick your growers. You get pretty lucky. I mean, it's about believing in the legacy guys. I mean, it's pretty hard for the legacy guys to come in, and most of them don't have credit. So, I mean, we came in, we believed in them, they believed in us and in the program, and just together we've been knocking it out of the park. It's been amazing.
Yeah, not that credit would do you any good in this industry, hey?
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks are pretty picky. Well, thanks so much again, Jay. We're going to move on to our next panelist now, and we'll come back to you for the Q&A at the end. Next up, we've got Jim Southam. Jim's based in Saskatchewan and is the proprietor of Prairie Cannabis retail shops, as well as a leader and a member within the Weed Pool Cannabis Cooperative and Weed Pool Processing Cooperatives, who he's speaking on behalf of here today. Jim, why don't you come on and take it away, buddy?
Thanks, Luke, and thanks to the MNP crew for hosting these panels. I think it's a great platform to bring everybody together in the industry and be able to do some networking. I guess first I'll start with who we are. We're a co-op of independently owned and operated retailers in Saskatchewan. We're currently amending our bylaws to bring all the new stores that have opened up in the province here in Saskatchewan since the province opened up the cap on retail permits, and as well across the country. We're looking at expanding our co-op of retailers nationally now. We've started talks with similar groups outside the province to show them the benefits of being a member of the co-op, how being a member of a larger group can benefit even the smallest stores, vendor discounts, service provider partnerships, to higher quality product at better pricing. To have one voice on behalf of, a larger group is a very powerful thing. Regulators have been guided by those that can afford lobbying. Lobbying government has been next to impossible for a smaller independent retailers, so we need to change that. Vertical integration has been our vision from the beginning. We registered our processing co-op federally with the idea of becoming a new gen co-op, which ideally would incorporate all areas of the industry from cultivators to processors to retailers into the co-op. We're not there yet, but that is the goal we're working toward right now. So our processing co-op, we've partnered with Western Cannabis, family-run standard LP in Regina. Western received their processing sales amendment in July. At present, we're packaging by hand, so we don't have a huge capacity right now. Our goal is to scale up and bring costs down so that we can pay cultivators, a better price for their product while selling to retailers at the best price possible. We just announced, we just received word yesterday that Western has received the building permit approval from Regina to finish work on the facility for the processing area on their property that, we plan to put a machine into that facility by year's end and receive Health Canada approval, hopefully early in the new year in 2022. Our goal is to provide smaller industry players, micro and standard, with a packaging solution that will meet their needs and be able to provide them with an affordable solution to get their products to market and pay the cultivator and the supplier the best possible price for their products. We know how difficult this market is to navigate, and that's why the team at Western will walk all our customers through the process and help them in any way possible that we can to get their product to market. Since legalization, the cannabis industry has been dominated by larger producers. That combined with burdensome regulations has made it difficult for smaller players to take part, never mind be successful. We still only have a fraction of the micros licensed that wish to transition into the legal market. And we feel that that portion of the players in the industry is the most important group because they're the ones that paved the way to legalization. And let's be honest, they grow the best product out there. We have recognized that from the beginning, and we want to do all we can to support like-minded independent businesses to help them succeed. And that's really what it's all about is, standing together, with independently owned and operated businesses and working together to help everyone we can be as successful as possible in the industry.
Perfect. You good there, Jim?
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. I love hearing your guys' perspective from it because, being based here in BC, I don't really see a whole lot or hear a whole lot about Saskatchewan, but you guys are pretty unique in the regulatory environment, eh?
We are. No, we were fortunate that, we had the opportunity to form the co-op and initially we, formed a wholesale distribution operation here in Saskatchewan. And like I said, from the beginning, we saw the benefit of becoming a vertically integrated, organization and we really see the benefit of pursuing that goal and we're taking it slow, but I think we're on the right track and we just want to help as many, smaller producers, be a part of the industry as we can.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, slow and steady is sometimes the way to go, right? Especially when you're a small guy coming up against the big players and you're not as well capitalized. Like we said earlier, it's impossible it's impossible to have a bank give you money or credit. So to ban
find one, let me know.
yeah. We've only seen it for publicly traded folks. But to see you guys bringing, it started with bringing the retailers together in the Weed Pool Cooperative and then moving on into Weed Pool Processing Cooperative, working with the micro growers, working with the legacy folks to bring their products out has been awesome. And you mentioned you were partnered with Western Cannabis in order to make that happen. Which provinces are you guys able to sell into?
Right now, we're licensed we're registered to sell into Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and British Columbia. We're in the application process in Alberta and Ontario as well. I also think New Brunswick, we have access to that market as well.
No Newfoundland?
Maybe it's Newfoundland. Is it Newfoundland? New Brunswick? I don't know. I'm a little bit removed. I got a lot going on the retail side of things right now, so I usually defer to our partner down in Regina for any questions on the details of the processing. But
all good, all good. Well, thanks so much, Jim. We'll come back to you during the Q&A period. Really appreciate your time today. Next up, though, last but not least, is M&P's own Jory Subaran. Jory is a management consultant here at M&P based in Calgary. His main role is to help his clients succeed by developing and implementing plans and strategies to achieve their vision and objectives through performance improvement, strategic planning, and fractional executive advisory. That was a big run-on sentence that I wrote right there. But there's nobody better able to speak to the results of his work than the man himself. So why don't you take it away, Jory?
Right on. Thanks, Luke. And first of all, just want to say to all the attendees, thank you very much for your time here this morning, and to Luke, Christy, Andrew, and the MMP team for putting this together. I think it's been really insightful thus far, and to the other panelists as well. Really, really interesting stuff. I guess to start off, and going into Luke, talking to some other cannabis leaders here in MMP. Some of the clients that we're working with, trying to identify what are some of the main challenges that folks either in the LP, processing, retail, whatever it may be, the cannabis industry as a whole. And, some of the highlights were, right now, especially around maybe downward pressure on pricing, supply and demand challenges, and then people and capacity, not just capacity, but sometimes the right people with the right capabilities in the right place. So with all that being said, I thought it would be, interesting to kind of take a lean management approach, and some of the things that we're working with clients on to kind of improve some of the challenges or gaps in those places. And for those that this might be an intro to lean, some of you might be a refresher. You already have these systems or this type of philosophy in place. But essentially, to those that don't know lean, lean is, originally came out of Toyota, way back in the day, and essentially is focused around these four principles, and really, creating those value creating tasks, eliminating waste, and then continuous improvement. But, I really want to focus on that last box, which is really understanding customer needs. When we take a look at the cannabis market, depending on what target or segment you're looking at, there's a few ways to differentiate your products, and there's a few to name. You could look at price, you can look at THC, terpenes, smell, look, burn, quality, a few different things. But within each segment, some of those pieces don't necessarily matter. And so when you're looking at lean or implementing lean within your processes, it's really important to think about, we don't want to do too much or too little, just exactly what they need. Because that definitely helps on the margin management. Like when pricing is going down, and then you're forced to kind of take a look at your cost structure, to maintain that, you want to be as efficient as possible. You want your quality and consistency to be there. So I thought this would be a good thing to touch on. And you can kind of see the quote at the bottom there, and I'm going to kind of get to it. But waste is anything other than the minimal amount of equipment, material, parts, space, people, etc., which are absolutely required to add value to the process. So Andrew, if you just want to click to the next slide, you can kind of see the three pillars here of lean. And so you got Muda, Miri, and Mura. For just given our time today, I'm going to focus on Muda, which is the waste piece. But on Mura, for example, is when we're talking, just so everybody can kind of get an idea, is when we're talking about unevenness. So that could be fluctuating workload or uneven demand, things like that you would work kind of scheduling or place of work solutions that would help make you better there. And then Miri is when we're talking about workload. So that's kind of, asking unreasonable amount of things from staff or from processes. And that can do with, training on processes, poorly laid out workspaces, unclear instructions and things of that nature. And you can kind of see there's some of the other elements I'm not going to touch on today, but if anybody needs to learn more, I can be happy to answer any questions around value, flow, pull, standardized work, visual controls, and then that continuous improvement piece. But Andrew, let's click through to the next slide. And really, the reason I wanted to kind of focus on this is because I think it's, some of the things that we have the most internal control over. Sometimes it's hard, you can have some demand planning tools, but some of the other things, those are more macro and not necessarily dependent on the business. And I just wanted to take some time to kind of highlight some of the classical forms of waste. And when we talk about non-value added time versus value added time, you want to think about, I always use the example, like if you were going to pay somebody $100 a minute and you were to look at their time and motion, what activities or what things within the process would you be willing to pay for? And that kind of starts with that first one with motion, which is only focused on that human motions and the ergonomics. And I can't tell you how many times I've done time and motion studies or watched kind of workflow from away. And, you add up maybe just how things are laid out or where people move throughout a process and how many that non-value added time, maybe even just walking around, and you kind of add up all that, okay, it might be 10 minutes an hour or 5 minutes an hour, but over a course of a year, that really does add up to be quite a significant impact. The second piece is that waiting and delay. And I'm sure, we've all experienced it when, you have faster or more consistent processes or steps within a process. And, step one needs to get it to step two, perfectly, or else they're waiting or it has to go back. And any time that people are waiting or delayed is non-value added time. So can kind of be defined as waste as well. The third thing is transporting things. So we're talking about whether it's, I highlight here, files, equipment, materials, but any time that we're taking a product and we're actually moving it, or there's a process being developed, how are we doing that? So the logistics of, where equipment is set up, where people are moving things when they have to be done. You can look at it maybe as an assembly line when you're doing it like from a pre-roll perspective or whatnot. And that kind of ties in a little bit to the fourth point there when we're talking about fixing errors and quality, when you kind of look at it as rework, and that this can be probably one of the biggest forms of waste that we see. And I guess if I use an example from a pre-roll machine, like if you don't get the weight right, or if there's issues around the quality of the paper, the filter, essentially all that time that we have to do to redo that pre-roll goes to non-value added time, which there's a cost associated with no revenue to come in to back it up. So those are the first four. Why don't we slip over to the next page? And sorry if I'm going a little quick here, folks. I know we got limited time and I'm happy to answer more of the questions, but this is one, and I'll kind of go down for over processing and overproduction. And that kind of goes to speak to really understanding your customer needs. So in both of those, like the over processing is you don't want to do anything more than the customer needs and wants. And then with the overproduction, you don't want to make more than the customer needs and wants. And so that's a pretty fine balance. And like I said before, when you're kind of going through the process of, your target market, really hammering in on what their needs are, is the time where you can, hey, is it all about THC? If it is all about THC, are we putting any effort or resources to, making it smell really nice or making it taste really nice if customers really don't care about that? So really, again, it's really understanding those needs so that you can do exactly that, not more, not less. And then, you can take a look at excess inventory as well, and if your process isn't efficient, you start to see, one step might have their paper or their pre-rolls or everything stacked to the top, and the next person's there sitting idle. And so we always want to kind of identify what some of the root causes are for some of those things. And then again, the last one, and I'm sure we all experience it, which is just knowledge disconnect and just communication across your organization in general. Making sure that all the steps and people see the big picture, they're connected to the strategic vision. Every effort that they have is kind of placed towards, hitting that mark with customer needs and what they want, depending on what that might be. We can go to the next page here, folks. And really what I was trying to highlight here is just some of the best practices or some of the tools and things that we've worked with clients at MMP with to help improve the business and some of the things that should be standard, in any successful business, not necessarily, one particular niche. And the first one is just having a strategic plan and a strategic budget. I'm sure we've all heard the analogy, you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so I tend to think, and it doesn't have to be some elaborate, 30-page business plan that does it, but it's more of a living document and something that you can use as a roadmap. And, Like if we think about, you know, how you could drive from Vancouver Island to Saskatchewan, you know, we know the most direct route is to take Highway 1 all the way through there, right? But, you know, there's 1,000 different ways to get there, but every time you kind of divert or move, you know, it costs you time, money, you know, effort, frustrations happen, things of that nature. So really what we try to do there is build a roadmap, and then essentially, whether it's from the financial or even the strategic priority, it allows us to kind of compare our results and our success against where we thought we'd be, and you know, identify those variances and things that, you know, maybe the market's changed, the customer needs have changed, and it just allows us to be a lot more proactive in our approach, and, you know, change, you know, internal things to make sure that we're hitting the mark. The second piece is, and it kind of goes to, you know, that process mapping and lean management philosophy, but just really actually formally laying out your processes and taking a look at them so that you can, you know, identify bottlenecks or gaps and things like that quite a bit easier. And, you know, the cannabis industry is pretty regulated, so standard operating procedures are almost required, but they're not necessarily always the most efficient procedures. You know, so there is some ways to kind of improve the way you do things there. And, you know, essentially when you're looking for that consistency and quality, you know, that's where process mapping and standardization really comes in. Like, you know, people here might laugh, but I always kind of say to my clients, you know, McDonald's is the best quality burger in the world, or one of them anyways, or restaurants. And they kind of look at me cross-eyed. And the reason why is because quality doesn't mean the best. It's the performance to spec. Like, do you get what you think you're going to get? And essentially, you know, like if you go to Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Paris, Tokyo, if you order a Big Mac, you kind of have an idea, maybe, you know, what it's going to look like. And it's not because they got Red Seal chefs in the back, it's because their process is so dialed in that, you know, if you put the buns on here, you put the patty on next, you put the lettuce on, and if you do it this way, you can kind of get a perfect Big Mac in 30 seconds sort of thing. So really having that process standardization, mapping, and things of that nature. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always, you know, room for improv and innovation and things like that, which is why I think constantly having that look at how your processes are working, you know, where there's breakdowns and things like that is always important. On the tech side of things, you know, there's technology is a great way. It doesn't necessarily fix a broken process or a person when you have manual inputs, but it is an efficiency tool. It's ways that we can use, you know, tech or, you know, certain systems to improve the way that we do things or do them faster. So you essentially can do more with the same amount or less. And whether it's tracking, demand planning, you know, seed to sale software systems, inventory tracking, you know, there's a lot of pretty interesting technologies that have become more and more economical and affordable these days for small to medium sized businesses. So there's a lot of ways to kind of you know, bring those into your business and make them work for you. Lastly, with modeling and data analytics, and it kind of ties into that reporting piece I have at the bottom there, is essentially the score sheet for your business. You know, you can look at it kind of like a hockey game. You know, at the end of the game, you know, you get a score sheet and it lists out all the stats from every employee, every team member that's there. And that's essentially, you know, what your financial statements are and some of the other tools and operational data that you can pull out from it. And really what we're trying to look at there is, you know, understanding what's really important to measure. Like, what are some of the success drivers that drive profitability, improve cash flow, you know, whatever the flavor, improve, you know, culture, morale, employee satisfaction, things of that nature. So really how I look at it is, you know, if you have those reporting, and especially from a data analytics perspective, and, you know, when you can really dial into, you know, what those drivers are and then how you can make those better forecasting for the future, it really gives you a tool that you can use to constantly monitor your business and be more proactive when you start things trending down the wrong way, or, you know, it really highlights some of the things that you can look towards improving your business. So thank you, everybody. That about wraps up my piece for today, but definitely happy to answer any questions. And if there's anything on any of these, you know, particular tools or strategies, don't hesitate to let me know.
Awesome. Thanks, Jory. Yeah, you covered it during your presentation about how, you know, when it comes to process mapping and operating in a lean environment, it fits really well with LPs because they have to have these SOPs, and not only do they have them, they have to follow them.
Yeah.
And if a you know, a Health Canada officer shows up and identifies, hey, you know, you changed this grow room into a drying room and you didn't let us know, well, there could be some big consequences there. So, you know, your work really fits in with the LPs, but from a data modeling and analytics perspective, I want to throw this out there because I know there's some retailers in the audience. You've helped a number of retailers analyze their sales and look at which products have been selling and what those trends are. And do you maybe want to talk about that for a hot second?
Yeah, no, for sure, Luke. And just on the SOP side, like I was just thinking of client I was working with, like, because you're absolutely right. If you write it out, I'm going to clean the roof or the ceiling once a week. You have to clean the roof once a week, right? So there's sometimes just ways that you can, you know, when it might not need it for once every 3 months or whatever it might be, but you have to follow it, and they'll call you out on it. So I've seen that happen before. But no, for sure, like on the, you know, on the data analytics piece and the modeling part, you know, whether you have Cova or Greenline, or you're using headset, or, you know, you're using something else, you know, really what we're able to do is kind of identify down to the SKU level, you know, like what is selling, what's not selling, what's high margin, and especially like in your pricing segmentation, like a lot of times we've noticed that, you know, folks will have, you know, ultra value SKUs that are, you know, identified as premium, you know, so they're leaving maybe some margin on the table or vice versa, right? And you do have some. So what we just help do is kind of essentially take all that data that, you know, companies may have, and they kind of put it into a model that can kind of help folks, like, essentially be more what if scenario planning, and kind of show them exactly to inform maybe what they purchase on their order days, you know, where they can maximize inventory turnover and cash flow with SKUs that aren't moving. If you do have to do any pricing or discounting, you know, where can you go to where there's a level that is still profitable and you're considering, you know, the turnover versus, you know, the decrease in margin, right? So, you know, definitely have a few tools on that piece as well, for sure.
Yeah, excellent. And I know some of the clients that you've helped us with in that realm, it's also been fairly efficient from a cost perspective as well. I know sometimes you look at you know, these financial services and maybe balk at it, especially in an environment where there's no credit available, nobody has a line of credit, et cetera. But I know that our work with retailers has been pretty affordable, especially. So thanks a lot, Jory.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Q&A now. So let's get all the panelists to jump back on camera and wave to the audience. Also, Andrew just posted in the chat that Jim at Weedpool has a great video for everyone to watch. Check it out after the webinar. I agree, it's awesome. It talks all about the cooperative there in Saskatchewan. And we also posted the phase 3 look at Jay and Michael's Sitka WeedWorks Canna Park out in Souk, BC. So have a look at both of those once the panel is over. Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you.
Let's start off. I want to get each of your input on something. Here in the marketplace, you know, we've got all types of different growers. You've got indoor, you've got outdoor, you've got greenhouse. I don't know if there's a fourth. I know there's some people growing aquaponically over a salmon farm. So there's that too. And everybody's path to market looks a little bit different. And I know out there, the outdoor folks can tend to struggle. So I wanted to ask the question, and maybe we'll start with Jason and follow up with Jim. How does an outdoor grower get their product to market?
So that's a great question. I mean, right now the market's solely, if they're looking to pouch their product, the market right now is solely based on THC really for pricing. So, and generally speaking, you know, outdoor growers can grow for a lot less money per gram. So, I mean, if you're prepared to lower your expectations for what your wholesale or MSRP is going to be, I mean, you can get it to market, but the quality has to be there. The general trend is that, you know, guys would rather pay an extra $5 for each 3.5 gram bag and get a higher quality flower. Weed end users tend to be that little bit more finicky and want to be that connoisseur and try the nicer product. So if you're growing outdoor, you want to make sure that it's nice outdoor. Otherwise, it may have to go to extraction, unfortunately.
Right. Jim, what's your input there?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different, you know, packaging formats. We've seen a big trend with the larger formats, the 14 and 28 gram SKUs. You know, typically to date, you know, they've been quite a bit cheaper, you know, a better value, you know, and that might be due to a little bit lower THC or, you know, a little bit less of a, you know, manicured product or trimmed. but there is, there are the different categories, as you said, of product, and there is a market for most product that's grown out there, and like Jason mentioned, the 3.5 grams probably the most difficult SKU to break into in the markets, and so you just have to look at the product and where it might fit in best, with other products on the shelves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we know there's been a lot of discourse recently about, specifically here in BC, if it's not 20% THC, they're not buying it. So what are you doing there, right? You're stuck either finding a medical processor or somebody who can sell into a different province, or going the extraction route, which, I think if you show up on a doorstep, rather than having a firm supply agreement, you might be a little bit disappointed.
And one last point, if you are involved in it, you may want to consider for outdoor grows, looking at Canna 2.0 products for your own product. I mean, you're going to maximize your profits that way. So if you already have a plan and perhaps want to process it yourself, you're doing gummies or anything like that, that's where you'll maximize your profits instead of giving it to somebody else to do. So have that plan when you're doing it. And then if you're vertically integrated yourself, you'll always have a market for it.
Right. Yeah. From a micro perspective, what do you think they're looking at with outdoor? I mean, even with indoor, from a micro perspective.
Sorry, do you mean price points or?
No, I think I mean process, right? Like, let's say, and I know Sitka, you guys are a bit different because, you guys really are vertically integrated, even with all these partners kind of at the bottom there. But like, let's say I'm a micro on my own and I just have my first harvest, and maybe I have a consistent harvest every 3-4 months, or maybe I just have one per year because I'm outdoor. What do you think I'm facing there in order to get revenue?
So yeah, that's a great question. So if you're an independent micro, I highly recommend early on being in touch with a processor, shop around, find one that you want. If you react too late, we all know that feeling of having hydro bills. Our micros run at about $45,000 a month in bills. So you don't want to be kind of left at the altar taking a low offer at the end of the day. So if you start really early, like months and months before, we personally, we do work with micros outside the park, and we're happy to do it. We basically sit down and have strain strategies, understand what's coming down the pipe. We compare it to what's out there on the market so that we always try to maximize the throughput and the value that we're putting out there. And so we can pay them the most money. But you want to start early. You don't want to be, when your crop comes down, calling 5 or 10 processors or other LPs to try to sell, because a lot of the times the small batch cannabis is too much of a headache unless they're really, really getting it at a low price.
Yeah. Jim, any input there?
No, I just would like to add that, with the abundance of product that's in the market right now, it's, it can make it more difficult for, say outdoor growers to, compete with the indoor product, and which is, unfortunate, because there's some really great outdoor producers out there right now. And, like Jason said, you just got to shop around and do the legwork and try and find a suitable home for the product that you have.
Yeah, it's interesting, through my conversations with both of you guys over the past day and 2 days, Saskatchewan seems like the ideal environment for that, because you don't have to deal with this government entity acting as a middleman. Here in BC, you show up to the province, you say, hello, I have, this many kilos of this strain, and they say, well, no, I'm not going to buy that, because they can't keep selling it then. Whereas Saskatchewan, you don't have that barrier, but you have a different barrier, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's, the size of our market really impacts the, the capacity, that we have to get rid of product and sell it here in the province. And, like I said, with the large quantities of product in storage right now, and it allows, you know, the other provinces to be, you know, very fussy with the product that they do pick and choose to purchase, and you know, it makes it difficult for the smaller producers to get a toe in the door and get some product sold.
Yeah. I hope I'm not offending anyone by saying that Saskatchewan is, you know, a big farming community. So I guess, you know, despite population being one thing, but I think a lot of the farmers have probably been growing their own for a while and just don't need to buy it at the retail store, eh?
I was quite shocked how many people come out of the woodwork since legalization that actually grow cannabis here.
All your neighbors suddenly are master growers. That's awesome. We maybe touched on this already, but do you have any more advice for how a cultivator should prepare for working with a processor?
Yeah, I think the number one right now, for us anyway, strain strategy is probably the most important. And this is saying that, hey, you know what, you're a very good grower. Strain strategy coming down the pipe is very important. Constant communication with your processor, how much flower you think is going to be coming. And really, the way that we do it, when we go to market, even in BC, because although people don't know, BC actually has a micro program and a micro purchaser. When we go to BC and even Alberta and the provinces, we sell the grower, not necessarily the product. So if there's let's just say five wedding cakes in BC, we can come with a micro story and say, hey, this is who they are. One big play that, and believe it or not, this is massive, is have an Instagram account, because it gives people something to look at. And a lot of stores, especially in Alberta and BC, go to the Instagrams and they want to see how that wedding cake was grown, how much love was put into it. What do these guys really know? And are these guys, if they're legacy guys, like let's see what they're all about. You know, so we're big on promoting them. We do mini promotions inside each dispensary just to promote the grower so that it's a bit more personalized for the end user.
That's really awesome advice that I never even thought about before. The one that I did think about is Twitter, because I get all of my weed recommendations from a couple of dudes on Twitter who I just trust their advice. And I think if you're a cultivator out there looking to get some buzz around your product, I think you got to look at some of those folks, because guys
100%. It 100%. Even like we have boots on the ground sales team, and a lot of their communication, even with the dispensaries, is through Instagram. And they'll just get contacted saying, hey, we want this product. And or who are these growers? Or the growers get contacted. And that's really, really great for the industry.
Jason, I was just going to pop in because I think that is a really interesting idea. You know, and some of the clients I work with, and as everybody knows, like the regulatory, you know, challenges when it comes to marketing is, you know, pretty strict, right? On what you can say, who you can say it to, and so on and so forth. So like I know some other folks, and even though I hate this word influencer, you know, I've seen some folks kind of team up with some, you know, large people that have large followings on social media and are able to essentially use that network to kind of promote their products and stuff. So I just wanted to add that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, the guys have had a lot of great success with it, and they also get their feedback. You know, they'll get feedback from end users. They get feedback from dispensaries, DMing. So it's definitely a great conduit.
Yeah, despite how annoying we might think most influencers are, if it works, you got to play with it, right? And it's like the THC game that we talk about in this market. If THC is the way the market is responding, then at least you know the rules of the game that you're playing, right? And you can focus on maximizing there.
That's right. But and then also on Instagram, if you're able to see how a product is growing and understand that, hey, this micro grower right here actually hand waters every single day, you might go and give that a try and try that product, whereas before you would have had no idea. So it's just a way of getting out there, how you basically set yourself apart from the competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Wong in the chat said it best. If it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid, right? Pardon me. kind of a weird question. I put this on here because somebody asked it and I didn't know the answer. And I don't know if you guys would either. But what's CBG? We know about THC, we know about THCA, we know about CBD. We heard a little bit of stuff about CBN, but that seems to be old news. Now everybody's talking about CBG. What is it and why is it making waves right now? Do you know, Jim? Why don't we start with you? Do you have any idea?
I actually, I haven't studied up on it. I just know that it's really unfortunate that we have to learn everything about cannabis now that it's legal, that, you know, I really feel like we've wasted the last 100 years to find out what this plant is and what it can actually do. You know, I think we haven't even scratched the surface yet of learning about the plant. And you know, I think there's going to be a lot more cannabinoids that, you know, come to light other than the 4 or 5 you just mentioned there. And, you know, I think that's something that should really be a focus for the whole industry is, you know, getting to the bottom of research and study to figure out, you know, how we can use this plant and you know, get all the benefit we can from it.
Jason, anything from you there?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't add anything to it. The CBD is basically as far as I go, and then I wouldn't do it justice even if I attempted it.
Yeah, that, and I don't think any of us wants to get caught off guard talking too hard about the medical benefits of this stuff.
Never mind the terpenes, Luke.
Sorry, what was that, Jim?
I said, never mind the terpenes. And
Yeah.
Now I'll talk terpenes all day.
yeah.
I'm not getting into medical stuff because that's a you're walking down a lawsuit territory there for sure. It looks like I'm doing a little bit of Wikipediaing here. It looks like it's potentially a precursor to other cannabinoids. So that's maybe why it's important. We learn something new every day.
That's right.
Let's talk about the regulatory environment again. I think we all know, and there's a lot of talk right now about cultivators being kind of, and I don't know your perspective on this, but you know, in the margin, in who gets the margin, it's kind of like, well, cultivators, processors, retailers, you know, maybe in that look. And cultivators also have a lot of issues, you know, just from the regulatory environment, all the rules, and obviously you guys work in a highly regulated environment too as processors. But I was wondering if there were any significant issues that exist today, not just the ones that you've overcome, but significant issues in the regulatory environment that exist today that are happening on the processing side of the industry.
Yeah, so Sitka hasn't really experienced any. Yeah. We're finding from the micro perspective, the growers are finding it as business as usual. They're all growing just like they did in the gray market or black market. They're finding a little bit of the paperwork at the end of the day a little bit more daunting. Their cost per gram has gone up probably by about 25% to grow in the white market versus black market. When it comes to, I think the biggest shock for everybody is just dealing with not the Health Canada reviews, but the CRA audits, which can happen quarterly or sometimes monthly. They'll come at you, and with micros, we find that they're very, they're a bit more lenient. They'll walk you through it. But if you're an LP or a standard processor or cultivator, they're going to throw a lot more at you. So we have a very talented QA, which assists and does it all for us. And it's kind of great because we also act as a bit of a big brother for the micros. So when they get their audits, Health Canada and CRA, we're kind of there to help steer them as well. So, but it's the paperwork is annoying. But it's just something that you have to put up with.
Yeah, it's a lot of reporting. Very similar to food and beverage industry. I know there's another group kind of based out where you guys are in Souk, and they're former food and beverage folks. I know that they're watching this right now. And when I chatted with them, they were looking at the regulations going like, oh, we can deal with this. We've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, we've really just found that even from the paperwork side, you can go in for an 8-hour day, and with the cleaning process at the beginning and all of your SOPs and then your paperwork, that 8-hour day can turn into a 5-hour day for any employee. So you have to take that into consideration, especially as well as with budgeting.
And that's why you need lean processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You should see what we do in 200 square feet sometimes.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Jim, how about you? What hurdles have you guys had to come up against, and what are you currently advocating for?
Well, I think like the overregulation on advertising and marketing, is difficult for every player in the industry, from micros to processors to retailers. Just the fact that it's difficult to get your brand out there, to give any kind of public awareness for who you are and what you're all about, and to build your brand. I noticed in the questions there that somebody asked if about if processors are able to sell a micros brand, or if it's branded under another brand. We're willing to do both. We have applications in for our own brands, but also we're more than happy to support any branding that cultivators have of their own, and it's been a really big burden trying to get that information out into the consumers, and help build brand awareness for any suppliers or retailers for that matter.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we're winding down to the end of our time here. I did want to do just throw out one more question, but we're not necessarily going to answer it. I just really like this guy's name. Kobe Nippelberg is fantastic. And he's asking if his COA came back at 27% THC and 4% terpenes, is the flower going to do well in the market? Well, I think he's off to a great start, but I think we all know the answer is a bit more complicated than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to do well, 100%. I mean, if it passes everything, whereas there's a story behind it, and our throughput with product like that, which is very good. Right now, like we say that the line is 20% and it sells. The line is kind of a bit higher than 20% now. You're more like you're at 22 or 23 if you want to have any sort of movement. 25 plus is moving very well right now.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'll just add that, definitely, the higher THC, takes precedent over other product, but also, people are looking a lot more at the terpene percentages now as well. And as retailers and a processor, we're looking at, there's a few suppliers that have the, top 3 or 5 terpenes listed on labeling now. And we're really trying to push to, bring some consumer awareness to, to that part of the plant as well.
That's excellent. Well, thank you very much, Jim, Jay, Mike, Jory. Thank you, Andrew and Christy, doing the back of house M&P technology and organizing work. And thank everybody who joined us in the audience today and who watched this video later on as an archive. It's been my absolute pleasure to host you fellas. I look forward to connecting again. Hopefully once this COVID thing is over, we can all meet in person. And thank you very much. Have a fantastic week.
Thanks guys.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Likewise. Take care.